Ladies and gentlemen, you are now listening to the Talking Nonsense About Impact Wrestling podcast. Cross the line in 3, 2, 1.
Hello everyone and welcome to episode 57 of the Talking Nonsense About Impact Wrestling podcast. Where's the time gone? My name is Jeff, and alongside me as always, sans Max, is the Hikaleo to my Chris Bay. It's Craig, everyone. What's going on, Mr. Impact?
Hey, yes, it's me, it's the MIC, Craig, aka Mr. Impact, for the TNAIW channel, and we're live once again. And of course, as if you don't know already, you can find us here, you can find us there, you can find us everywhere. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, Sounder, Spotify, and wherever else you podcast.
Yeah. Sorry, go.
Yeah, the same. We have new countries added, but of course we also have the numbers.
Yeah, we'll do the numbers as Craig mentioned really quickly. Obviously, we're both trying to speed up the process as we have a big show today with Mike being on the show, Michael being on the show. But countries there. Thank you to Brazil, Finland, Wales, and who we missing? Indonesia for listening to us. Welcome to the TNAIW family. We're worldwide. As Craig also said, numbers is a big thing, but before we get to that numbers, there was episode 56. If you guys watched us, you notice now that in the waiting room for this, we have a trivia question. Last week's was who was the longest reigning, and this is for our audio listeners who don't get to see that. Who is the longest reigning, most prestigious champion, the grand champion of all time, and it was Moose. Moose was the answer. And if you go back and you're on YouTube, go back and look at this last question. But the question is, who was the NWA champion when TNA was stripped of that title and birthed their own? Who was the champion? We'll reveal that next week. Let's get to numbers. We have Michael Cavacini on the show, which we talked about, and we don't want to waste any time with that because he spills the TNA, which is always great here. By the numbers, Craig's, as we've broken them up, Craig's audio listeners, we're at, it's supposed to say 80, but we'll take the 4 as well. It might be at 84 now. And it balanced out. So we're keeping you guys. We're thankful for that. We're growing on YouTube at 215, 53 on Twitch. We're back on Twitch live. It'll be 8 to 9. We'll go hit up the chat group to make sure they come in. But we want to see this chat room filled up again. And once we get the timing right, we will. And then 2730. We're almost to 3,000. Let's get there before Bound for Glory. Craig, we got some important numbers, though, to hit, right?
Yeah, some very important numbers. So let's kick it over to the power rankings.
Hi everyone, this is Tatia with Rangers of Wrestling, and here's your TNAIW Top 10 for this week. Number 10, Eddie Edwards. Number 9, DK's Rosemary. Number 8, Rich Swan. Number 7, X-Division Champion Josh Alexander. Number 6, Number 1 Contender Ace Austin. Number 5, Tag Team Champions The Good Brothers. Number 4, New Japan Spin Juice. Number 3, Moose. Number 2, World Champion Christian Cage. Number 1, Bullet Club's Chris Bay. That was your top 10 Impact Wrestlers of the week. Do you agree? Let us know at TNAIW channel. Back to you guys.
All right. Do you guys agree for the power rankings? All I know is we can agree on one thing. If you take PWI seriously or not, at least, the very least, we have to say congratulations to Rich Swan, Impact's very own, first top 10 ranking in a very long time. So pretty awesome. All right.
It's pretty cool.
You don't seem so as enthused as I am about it, but I'll take whatever we could get. All right, but without further ado, let's get this going. Let's get the man in here himself. The author of the upcoming 20th anniversary of TNA Impact books, the one, the only, Michael Cavacini. Michael, you're on and you're good to go. What's going on, buddy?
Hey guys, how are you? Great to be here.
Glad to have you back. So it's a little new setup since you were here last time, but no game at the end, but we got a lot to talk about. But first, we'd be silly to ask, well, a couple things. One, where are you in the book? How far along are you? When should we expect it? Are we gaining steam here?
Sure. So yeah, I was working on it this morning. I've been on a bit of a streak every morning working on writing. And actually, I'm on my way to 200 pages. And but the first draft is going to be really long. And then I'll probably have to figure out, okay, how do I tighten it up? And just to be clear, because I know there is a little confusion about this. So I've decided to make it one book.
Right.
So rather than two, just to that way everyone kind of gets everything in one volume. It might be a really longer book because of that, but we'll figure that out. But no, it's come along well. It's broken into 4 parts, and I just keep, as I transcribe interviews, I drop things into different spots, and I have come up with some names for chapters, which are kind of fun.
Okay.
So that's cool. And but right now I'm transcribing my interview with Al Snow,
Wow.
So I'm working on that lately.
The lifeguard, Al Snow, the savior.
Yes.
Oh, man. That's awesome. That's 200 pages. So, yeah, obviously you said it was going down to one book, but it's going to be a bigger book. I know last time you were here, we played a game. I know I have to buy at least 9 books. so how big of a book are we talking here? We're talking literally from day one to the end, right? Or to what we are now?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's loosely broken into 4 parts, with each part representing 5 years. And, but when I say, it's not going to be perfect, because what I mean by that is, it's you're probably going to have a chapter about, just all about the referees. So you'd have Earl Hebner, Dave, or Brian Hebner. You'd also have Daniel Spencer and Brandon Toll. So you'd have kind of, timelines overlapping in that instance. But I think it makes sense to kind of keep them together when they're talking about, favorite matches they refereed, or favorite moments, or what goes into being a referee, and conditioning and all those things. So, there are going to be certain moments in the book that are super, specific, like Jeff Jarrett being sent home, right? That was 2009. But you're also going to have certain kind of, themes, if you will, to certain chapters that I kind of drop throughout the book. So, I hope it's not 1,000 pages. It could be. Who knows, right? It's going to be, Bret Hart's book was really big, but it was really, really good. So I think it's less about meeting a minimum page count or a maximum page count, and just saying, is this as good as it can be? And am I including every? And I'm sure, there'll be extra. So if it goes well and it's well received, who knows? Maybe there could be some sequel, if you will, down the line that's focused on a specific topic. But one thing I do want to point out related to this is, in light of the whole Daphne situation, which is tragic, I think I'm going to probably work on her interview next, because she's fresh in my mind. And actually, just this past week, I interviewed her attorney. She had wanted me to speak with him because he represented her in her workers' comp claim that she filed against TNA, and that's going to be its own chapter. Her side of the story, her attorney's side of the story, plus some additional information as well. But it's just really important to get her story out there, because she was so thankful that I was going to do that. Yeah. And, now that she's no longer here, I think it's even more important to make sure to follow through on that, so she, so she isn't forgotten, and that it's clear why she did what she did, and, how special she was as a human being.
Yeah, definitely. I said it last week on here that I see too many people using it as a marketing tool, her image and stuff. But not describing maybe her love for her, which is great, but not what you're saying, which is telling her story. How did we get here? How did we get to this point? And not, over sensational. Yeah, there you go. The situation, unfortunately. So really cool to hear that. I'm excited to see that she was a really great person, and to hear that she was very thankful for you to tell her story. I can't wait to read that chapter. Well, from there to we have a lot more to spill to TNA. There's some really good juicy stuff that will come after the last break that we're going to do. But Craig, we kick it to you because Michael and I are going to do Hot Topics this week.
Yep, it's time for those hot topics. And of course, we kick off with this week's impact on Access TV and YouTube Insiders. The show opened with Rosemary defeating Tasha Steelz, the tag team titles. We moved then to Matthew Raywalt challenging Trey Miguel. Rhino was rebaptized in the Holy Waters of Change by Eric Young and Violent by Design. Carl Anderson defeated Rich Swan in a bunkhouse brawl. Mickey James wanted to remind everyone just who is Hardcore Country. David Finlay defeated Chris Bay with the help of his partner Juice Robinson, but Chris Bay also had some help in the form of Hikuleo. Steve Macklin defeated Pete Williams with the help of TJP and the No Way Conga Line. We also had Moose defeating Eddie Edwards before a classic old school TNA type brawl ended the show with what's going to be an amazing 10-man tag team match next week. But what were your guys' thoughts and feelings? Match of the night, segment of the night, how, and of course, I believe you can see the polls on the screen of what you're looking forward to the most, and we also have at the end we'll see what you guys thought. But we'll start to Michael, get your thoughts and feelings on this week's Impact. How do you feel the show went? Is it a good way to continue on the road to Battle for Glory and as the kind of more of a build up to Victory Road coming up this next weekend?
Yeah. No, actually, I thought it was really good. So I can't really catch it live. Typically, I usually it's just I can't be like to my wife, hey, Thursday night, can we kind of watch this for 2 hours? So I typically watch it after the fact. And everyone was talking about how awesome it was. I was like, oh, wow, okay, I'm looking forward to checking this out. And I thought it was really good. I don't think there was any downtime in the show. It was great variety, right? You have Swingers Palace. You have the Waters of Change. I mean, I always love the VBD. They're just terrific. And, just love what they're doing. But then some really, really great matches, too. I mean, and of course the ending, which I know a lot of people were talking about. And that table that refused to break. So I would not want to be rude for Carl Anderson. I'm sure that wasn't pleasant, but I do think that they're doing a great job of having these multiple storylines going on. I thought the interaction with Christian and everyone backstage was cool. Josh Alexander and Scott Moore, and just like Christian's really. He's so much better than Kenny Omega was as the champion, because it feels like he belongs, and it feels like he cares, and he's actually investing the time. And it's not with Kenny Omega, it was just like Kenny Omega on a bus with Don Callis. It felt like the same segment, like week after week, month after month. Where with Christian, I feel like it feels more fresh, and I feel like it's better for the fans. Yeah. So I really am happy that he's in this position, and I do really wonder, based on the way that they kind of hinted at Josh Alexander wrestling him, I'm like, is that where we're going for Bound for Glory? I mean, that would be incredible. But, I don't know. I mean, we're just really going to have to wait and see. And actually, speaking of Bound for Glory, real quick, I was originally planning on going, but with COVID and all the crazy stuff in the world, I am going to skip. No. So I'm going to have to go next year or to Slammiversary next year. But for everyone going, obviously, have a blast. I think the venue is fine. I mean, the fact that they're getting out of the studio and going somewhere is great, and the prices are reasonable for $300.
Yeah.
You can be front row for TV tapings and Bound for Glory. Like, compare that to WWE. That's a hell of a deal.
Yeah.
I mean, I know $300 isn't anything to sneeze at, but for the money, that's really, really good. Plus, you get other perks along with it. So, if I could go, I would absolutely drop the cash on that, because I think it's going to be a spectacular show, and we're on that road. And speaking of that, obviously Victory Road is next. So
Yeah,
checking that out too.
That's more depth on Bound for Glory and Victory Road, but Impact Access TV. Sweet Jeff, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I mean everything bullet point I have, he really hit, honestly. And I think that's a testament to the product Impact put out last night. I made no bones about it. For the past couple weeks or so, I felt like although there were good to very good moments or matches or stuff throughout the weeks, it just felt like they were trying to figure out, not maybe try to figure out, but trying to end the previous set of storylines and just kind of branch off into something new. And I think we saw the first episode of the real road to Bound for Glory. That ending segment that everyone's talking about, it really was like a, hey, we're here kind of thing. These are our main faces. These are our main heels. Christian fits in. And I love Kenny Omega in the sense of it got us the popularity it did for the time, for those pay-per-views, for the buzz for those shows, and all that other stuff. But as far as what Michael is saying, he's not wrong. It was a lot of the same spiel, the same I'm Kenny Omega. And that's not a him. That also has to be fall on Impact as well, or maybe Tony when they banter or figure out what they're going to allow him to do or not do. But with Christian, he moves. He talks to different people. It's interesting to see him interact with more than just the guy he's facing in Ace Austin. He's giving the rub to these guys yes, I always say it, and I'm not going to back off that. Kenny Omega, to me, was at the time, the number one biggest name outside of WWE, at least known worldwide at the beginning of AEW, and then when he came to us. And I still think he has that draw. But there's a difference between that and that someone who has a history with the company that can now lead and tell stories to the back. It just works more. It has a lot of synergy to it, especially when you're pushing all your old content as well. It makes a lot of sense. So I really dig that. Tasha steals. I know a lot of people weren't fans about it, but here's the thing with her stealing the belts thing. It doesn't happen often. I love hearing 9/10 of the law possession. Is it a storyline I want to see once every tapings? No. But does it work for this to give her something different, to put her over as a different entity than they were with Fire and Flava? Yes, I think it works that way. And they're giving her, as well as a lot of other people, I'll use it as a transition, letting these people shine. Fulton talks now. You have Rosemary and Havoc doing their thing on top of Decay doing their, the men of Decay doing their. It's just a lot of levels, as Mike said, of them covering and giving everyone a story to be in without losing them or feeling pushed off. I love what they did with this episode. The matches were fire. We could talk about that all day. VBD is one of the probably the best group they've built since DK, and I don't know if that's really a big feat or not. But I think VBD is something that's going to be talked about for years, that we look back on, and it has staying power. Eric Young is a genius when he does this, and whoever's producing those segments, I really love him. I had one note that I did. Oh, okay. The one thing I did want to mention I'll mention it while we're pulling these up. So as I pulled up earlier, and Craig mentioned Carl Anderson versus Rich Swan. 41% was the most look forward to match that you guys voted on. And then as far as grade, it was a whopping 73% that thought it was 5 Flames. It obviously went down 4-3-2. With 19, 6, and 2 respectively. So it seems everywhere everyone was in agreement that this was a great showcase for Impact, the talent on there, and the road to Bound for Glory, which obviously we'll talk about in just a second. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm sure there's a lot more I can really talk about. Oh, yes, that is it. a lot of people weren't stoked about the lineup, the card coming in there. Oh, it's a bunch of rematches. Oh, it's rematches. If you didn't watch this because it was rematches, you missed out. You need to go watch this because the rematches were better than the originals, and it told stories. So don't let the card fool you. These are talented wrestlers that, even if they've wrestled each other 70 billion times, Moose and Eddie are still going to tear down the house. A bunkhouse brawl between, Anderson and Swan are going to tear down the house. So I thought it did everything it was supposed to do. I'm very happy with it. Craig?
Yeah, you're not going to be disappointed. It was a great show. But now we're cruising towards the Victory Road on the road to Bound for Glory. But, of course, at Victory Road, we have Ace Austin versus Christian Cage for the World Championship. Chris Sabin versus Josh Alexander for the X Division Championship. We also have the Bullet Club versus Finjuice. Tasha Steelz and Savannah Evans taking on Decay for the Knockouts Tag Team Championships. Moose and Morrissey taking on Callahan and Eddie. How do you feel about this show leading into Bound for Glory? Is this obviously Impact Plus specials? They stay at the same level. They never go below or above. It's usually same level. On the road to Bound for Glory, how do you see this playing out? Yeah. Does Ace Austin become world champion? And how do we see this? How do you feel about this on the road to Bound for Glory, Jeff?
Sure. So a lot to unpack there, but I did say I had something to mention on Impact on the Access TV, and I'll mention that really quick, and it kind of falls into all this. The Bullet Club has kind of wavered a little bit, passed the torch to a bunch of different people, kind of got lost in the shuffle, obviously in the States. I really think Impact and Chris Bay are the people that could give it the spark to make Bullet Club cool again. I just wanted to get that out there. With that being said, the fact that he is wrestling at Victory Road under the Bullet Club banner with Hikuleo, and there, and then you have Sabin versus Alexander. It's a bomb ass card. If you told me this was Bound for Glory without all the hype, a year ago, I would have said, well, fuck yeah, I'd watch that. But it just being Victory Road, something in between, and you're right, they always stay on the same level. They're never going to disappoint with these plus specials, but I see a lot of people saying, no, they shouldn't have these, especially in between Bound for... Look, when we got rid of 12 pay-per-views a month, everyone complained. Now we bring back 12 shows a month, or a year, excuse me, and 8 of them are free if you're Impact Plus member. So I enjoy them. I enjoy them for what they're worth. At the same time, I think we would be silly to say that the last 3, Emergence, this one coming up, Victory Road, and prior to that, what was it when we were Homecoming. I think they're knocking it out of the park because they do have continuity, but it's not like it's the blow off to a lot of things. Like I just feel like it is playing a good role. I don't think it's overstepping its boundaries. I think it's going to be a great show. I'm all for it. Victory Road, the name has a soft spot in my heart. Anyways, I have a soft spot for that. So, I'm excited to see where it goes. I think it's going to be an awesome show. And I think it's going to be literally more so a setup for Bound for Glory than it is for anything else.
Mike?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's going to be, even though these are kind of transitional shows, if you will, to the big pay-per-views, they don't half-ass it. I mean, the card here is pretty awesome. I do think Christian's retaining. I don't think they would have him drop the title on something like this, but you can bet that they're going to have a great match because both those guys are awesome. I think Josh Alexander versus Chris Sabin is going to be spectacular because, again, they're just terrific. I love this whole Eddie Edwards, Sami Callihan thing. Sami is like so good because he's great at being a bad guy, but he's like so funny as this like anti-hero because just the things he says just make me laugh, and I'm just like, because wrestling humor can sometimes be like cringeworthy, but he is just perfect. I mean, I feel like he can do no wrong. So I'm loving this whole collaboration, even the clinking of the bats. Yeah. They're really fun to watch. So that's just going to be terrific. And I do agree that Tasha Steelz, she could have easily just kind of faded into the background. after Fire and Flava broke up. But I actually think this is kind of reviving her and making her more interesting. Yeah. Similar to how Trey Miguel with the Rascals, like they were, they were fine, but he's really stepped up and showed how he can like really kill it in the ring. So I think anytime you're part of some sort of tandem or faction, if you have the chance to break out on your own, it's really like, put up or shut up. And both of them have really done a terrific job. So I do think that it's going to be a fun show, and it's going to be a nice way to kind of ease into the fall, going into Bound for Glory.
Yeah, I didn't say who I thought. I think Christian retains too. I get Ace, and this is his last chance to be, I think, before he turns to be the youngest. I think this is like the mark we figured out. So could he win? Yeah, it's possible, but I don't think they dislike Tessa enough to purposely just throw away Christian's title reign just to race her off the record books there.
Well, Ace will be the youngest male world champion. That's what it said, be the male. So anyway, moving on. Now we're officially on the road to Bound for Glory. Of course, no match has been announced yet, but they have finally announced the venue. It is going to be Sam's Town Casino at a special time of 10 p.m. Eastern. That's 3 a.m. for the UK folks, and I'm guessing pretty late for everywhere else. How do you feel about the late start, especially with, of course, AEW running a show that same night? Does it make sense for them to run the show later? Is Sam's Town a good place? Is Bound for Glory going to be as special as everyone thinks it is? Mike?
Yeah. Well, first off, I found it, and maybe I was mishearing it, but during Matt Stryker's commentary, and I love Matt Stryker, on Impact, he kept he's talking to D'Lo about, D'Lo, what's it like having to wrestle later at night and blah, 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 and what's that do to you? And I'm thinking, what the hell's he talking about? In Vegas, they're going to be starting at 7 p.m. That's the same time they'd be starting if it was on the East Coast. So it has zero effect on them because they're starting at their normal time. I think he should be saying, what kind of effect does this have on you as a fan trying to stay up late and watch? That's really, what is it like if you're in the UK and it's like 3 a.m. or whatever time it would be? But no, I do think that, the reason why they're starting late, I know they said because of AEW, but I also think because it's live. If it's 7 p.m. in Vegas, it's going to have to be 10 p.m. on the East Coast, and obviously even later in other time zones. So I really do think that's what matters. There's probably some crossover between AEW and Impact for viewership, but Impact fans are really passionate, so I think if they could pick between AEW TV show and, Impact's biggest pay-per-view of the year, they're watching Impact. So I don't really think that's a huge contributing factor. As for the venue, I have never been there. I know that Impact has multiple times. And honestly, I'm, again, not trying to be negative. They've had a tough time, moving TV taping to the current, if you just see how often they keep promoting them. I think the first, Slammiversary, they sold all that pretty quickly. But then they had to keep promoting the tickets were on sale for these TV tapings because they can't really give away too much about what's going to happen at these tapings, even though they're great. So there's not really a hook.
Yeah.
So knowing that they're kind of, struggling, if you will, to fill the TV studio, they were absolutely not going to go to a big venue like TNA used to do years ago and have a bunch of empty seats. Scott's smarter than that, and it realizes, let's pick a venue where it looks full, so not only for the TV viewers, but also for the people in attendance, so they feel like they're part of something. And also, it's just a smart way to play it safe with COVID, because I'm writing a damn book about the company, and I'm not going.
Right.
So if I'm not going, imagine who else isn't going. Yeah. So you really do have to kind of take baby steps. Maybe next year when things are hopefully better, they'll move to a larger venue. Who knows? But there's no point in jumping the shark. So I think that the venue's perfectly fine. They'll make it look great. I think it's going to be a terrific show. And what I'm most excited about is in those teaser trailers, they keep showing AEW and AAA and all these other promotions, and their relationship with NWA is excellent. So I'm just really fascinated to see, what are they going to do at the biggest show of the year to kind of bring all of these promotions together and make it super special. So, yeah, I'm very excited. I think it's going to just be an awesome show, and definitely willing to stay up late for it.
Yeah, yeah. Once again, same wavelengths for me. I think what a lot of people aren't taking into consideration when they book a venue for Impact, fantasy book an Impact, is a couple things. One, it's not their money. So when you fantasy book something, you're going to say, "Oh yeah, MGM Grand." In theory, with that big of a potential lineup, yeah, could they one day do MGM Grand? Sure. But let's be real here. Right now, they can't. And the problem is a couple things. One, obviously, pandemic. Two is, although the product is hot, and I will say it's hot in the sense of numbers are up all across the board. I think we're at 597 now on Twitter. So there's things that are growing. YouTube's growing. They're getting revenue streams other places. The crowds that were in attendance in Nashville were hot. Everyone noticed they were loud and hot. Okay. But how many were there? 200 to 300 at the most, and that's being generous. And that's not necessarily on ticket sales. I think in Slammiversary, they were sold out, as Mike said. And I think they were a little bit when Christian was announced. But he's right. They can't give everything away, so what do you offer to the local buyer who wants to come? So in Nashville, it's a little more difficult. You're giving, kind of like the Impact Zone, you're giving Nashville people who may or may not be fans 3 months worth of four to six tapings each. So, one, that's a lot for just an Impact fan. Two, it's a lot for a traveling Impact fan. And three, once you tap out your money source in one little city, how, especially in this climate, what do you do next? The answer is leave. And that's what they're doing. So I'm glad they're leaving. I don't care how small of a venue is. It's way more than 200 to 300. I think if you look it up, it's 1,400 depending on how you set it up. So to us, even if we get 800 to 900, that's still quadruple what we have at Skyway. So if you think Skyway's hot and loud and looks cool or sounds good, this should as well. The actual... It's going to hang on Impact production doing their job. That's all it comes down to. Everything I say, oh, looks small. If they put the set nice, if they have the entrances cool, if they do something different and special than just being the Impact on Access TV show and set, I don't think people are going to complain. I think once you see the product, it sells itself. So now it's them having to put spit shine on stuff, but it just doesn't make sense for them to gamble on a big venue and half fill it. I was there for those venues. I was in the not in the pay-per-views, but I went to the pay-per-views, and I was staying on hard cam with 20 other people while 1,000 were on the opposite side of us. So we've seen the worst. I think this is right now the smartest play, and the same goes for the time change. Look, there's no reason to compete with the hotter product in AEW, even if you want to argue the hotness of that compared to Impact. Go for it. That's all on the fans. I'm not into that. But the amount of fans they have is the issue. So you don't think at least 100,000 of their fans are would have chosen Dynamite or whatever it is over Bound for Glory? I think so. I'm not as worried as the UFC. I realized the UFC show that's also on that night starts at 6 p.m. Eastern. And who knows how long that lasts. So even if it lasts till 11, at least Impact's alone from 10 on. I understand how it messes with our UK friends, but I would have to say this. If Scott's not taking a chance on a bigger venue because he knows the numbers, I think he knows the numbers enough to know what he's losing by putting it at 10 p.m. on East Coast. So maybe the British views aren't big enough to warrant, maybe he thinks the loss would be bigger staying at the 8 o'clock. Unfortunately, then moving it. So either way, all that stuff aside, I'm excited about it. I think this is the last show, as Carl Anderson has said. And then Sunday obviously is football. Yeah, logistically it doesn't make sense. And And then obviously the tapings would be Monday and Tuesday instead of Sunday and Monday. So it'll be a little bit harder to fill those. But yeah, to wrap that up, it's just they're going to make the right decision for the Impact brand to survive. Not for the 1 or 2 Impact fans who or more that are going to cause a riot over it. But what I think is going to happen is Carl Anderson said, and that's what I'm going to get back to, is after Bound for Glory, this is the last of the intimate shows. And if we're saying, well, how are we being hypocritical saying they can't fill a bigger venue, that's now. If Buddy Murphy, and I'm going to use all their old names, so I apologize, Braun Strowman, Bray Wyatt, the Iconics, whoever else show up at this pay-per-view, you're going to tell me that they can't sell out something a little bit bigger? No, I think they will, and that's the risk they're taking. The risk that they're taking is investing in talent. And I'm fine with that. It's been a long time since they did. So, they're putting their money where their mouth is. They're at a place where they can finally afford to do so, and I'm excited. I would take a big name like Bray and Braun over Caesar's Palace any day. That does nothing for me. What's going on in that ring, and then furthermore afterwards, matters more to me. So.
Yeah, completely understand that. But in regards to the UK thing, if we have a TV deal, maybe the audience would be bigger.
Speaking of the UK, I want to chime in here. So I recently interviewed for my book the team from Challenge TV. So these are for those who don't know, TNA was at its height in ratings when they were on Challenge TV. They were on Bravo prior to that, and then they went to Challenge, which was actually kind of like a game show network. But they took a chance on Impact, and it paid off really well because they, for a period of time, Impact was getting bigger ratings than WWE programming. And Challenge is also free to view, so it's like kind of, in the States you have the broadcast networks that everyone gets access to, same type of deal. But it was really interesting talking to these people because I was just talking to them about that popularity and why do you think their, TNA and Impact is so much bigger in the UK than the US, even though it's like a Nashville company. And it was just really interesting to hear their stories and the things that they would do back in the day. And British Boot Camp, we talked about that, which was really fun. And I also interviewed the guy who negotiated all of the TV deals for Impact, both in the UK, in India and elsewhere. And I did ask him, what happened with Impact's TV deal with the UK last year that lasted a month or two. It was so brief. I was like, well, pretty sure that was supposed to be longer. And, he told me what happened. So obviously I'm holding on to that, and I'll share that with you guys in the book. But it is interesting because some of those international deals were if they weren't in place, the company might not be around anymore because they were that lucrative. So it's really interesting. And I did ask for financials for these, so I do know how much money they made off of these deals, including the Challenge TV people. They gave me numbers too, sometimes in pounds. But no, it's to me the UK side is really interesting. So, and I do think that if they're smart when it's safe to do so, should absolutely tour there again. I think the last time they were there was 2018 or 2019. They should get back there. They should get a TV deal there. They really need to, because that's such a perfect market for them because it worked before. So that should be a top priority whenever it's feasible. So hopefully we'll get to that point.
Yeah, one more thing on that. I saw something in the chat thanks guys for being in the chat and riling that up. They sold 2,500 when they were still on Pursuit for BFG 2019. Yeah, I don't know that. I won't dispute the numbers. You might be 100% correct. I don't know how many were papered or anything like that. But I will say at that time, we had some steam behind us. Yes, we were on Pursuit, but we knew we were going somewhere else. They were buying Access TV. So it was a bigger moment. Are we about equal or a little bit further in the process to where we were there, I think? Yes, I think so. But that doesn't include a pandemic, steam maybe getting let out of the tires, a little air out of the tires, because it's been 2 years since then. So I think there's just a lot that plays in it, and playing safe right now until you get to 2022 is smart. So let's get to Brian Cage, Craig, and then we'll take a little break and get to the juicy TV deals we're hinting at.
Yeah, so in case you guys didn't know, I think last night, or it probably was last night, Melissa Santos, former Impact announced Brian Cage, went to Twitter and posted a video and she basically said, Brian Cage is a superstar. People who know him from the Indies, Impact, Lucha Underground, know he's a superstar. And he's a superstar and he's being misused right now.
That's me, right? Yeah, I'll make it quick because I really want to save time for this last thing. This new hour format's gotta get used to. But Brian Cage, I think, is a very talented guy. I think the part that discouraged me while he was with Impact, one, obviously he got injured when he had the championship, then they went to Pursuit. So there were a lot of things that were against him as an Impact fan, but I still dug him. I think he could put a great match together. He'll get his shit in, but at least it'll be entertaining and believable in the sense of I believe what Brian Cage sells from entry to bell, or I guess pinfall. It's the talking that really is his. I think what is hindering him right now. He's not the best talker. There's not much character development there besides big guy who could go. And is that on him? Maybe. Was it him in such a rush to go from a place where he could have developed that to a place where AEW, where they were just going to throw him with a Samoa Joe TNA 2010 ripoff? Yeah, sure. Here's Taz. You're a big guy. Here's Taz. He's your champ. He's your manager. And okay, yeah, no. So I think it was just very bland booking. He didn't get to develop prior, and he had Taz speak for him. I think it would be a lot of people are going to fall to the wayside with AEW just upgrading their talent above. Doesn't mean anything less of Brian Cage. It just means you're bringing in a CM Punk and a Daniel Bryanson. Bryan Danielson, and everyone else. So I think he just needs a new, fresh coat of paint, maybe a breather somewhere else. I think it would behoove him if they play off this, if he does get released, or and God forbid he does. I hope he keeps his job, but him and Melissa, with Melissa being his ring announcer and manager, would be kind of dope. So I think there's always a case for him to step back into the spotlight. He's only 37 years old, but I mean, she's been complaining about this for a while, even when he was, in the limelight with Taz. And I even told her, I was like, we miss you, come home, and she liked it. So I think there's just more to the story, but I think he can definitely help our product.
Mike, your thoughts on that?
Yeah. Brian Cage is interesting. He's almost like a modern day, the hell's his name? Rob Terry, right? Like he's this. No. I'm not. Yeah, obviously Brian Cage is probably more talented, but he's really known for his physique, right? He's just like a big guy who's really known for his physique, and there's nothing wrong with that. I actually like Lex Luger. And people like that. I love the Ultimate Warrior. So I think, you can make it work for you. But yeah, it's AEW. They have so many people that it's so easy to get lost in the shuffle there, which I do think when you hear about people saying, oh, whatever talent should go to AEW. Well, maybe not, because just like WWE, you can get forgotten. And that is why I think Impact can be a better choice for a lot of people, because they just find a way to give attention to a whole bunch of people each week. And, so I don't think AEW is always the answer. So I don't know. I don't know how long Brian's contract is. I'm not sure what he'll do next. I mean, if things don't pick up for him there, he probably will go somewhere else. Maybe he comes back to Impact, or not sure. Maybe he goes to Japan. I mean, anything could happen. But, talent being misused, I feel like, has been a huge topic for this past year, especially with WWE and elsewhere. And something I also do want to throw out there, which is a little bit off topic, but since we're talking about AEW, is that they're doing TV tapings this weekend, I believe, today actually,
Right.
at Soundstage 19 and Universal Studios. So that is the soundstage that I believe Impact used in 2014. Soundstage 21 was the original Impact
That's what
Zone.
they're using.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool that they're kind of coming home. I reached out to a friend who works for AEW, and I was like, how cool is it that all these TNA crew people are coming back to Universal Studios, and, but this time with AEW. So I think it's really neat. Good for them to kind of have the chance to be there again. And but no, I wish Brian well. I mean, I think he's had some great matches, and I hope that things turn around for him and that he gets an opportunity to shine.
Yeah, I agree. I think he'll get it. It's just a matter of when and where. Maybe he sticks there and this works for him. But people are blowing it up worse than it is. He hasn't said anything. It's his wife who is their own person. So we have one that says TV deals, but it's kind of mixed in. It's more questions for Michael. It's still in the TNA. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll come right back and ask him some of that stuff. All right? We'll be right back.
What's up, everybody? I am the hardest part of the ring, the host of the Apron Bump podcast. Ugh, another wrestling podcast. How many times can I listen to fans tell me who needs a push, who doesn't need a push, who brings Vince's coffee these days? Enough! The Apron Bump is about the journey. It's about nostalgia. It's about discovering new forms of wrestling to really tickle your pickle as a wrestling fan. The podcast brings you reviews of wrestling events all over the world, whether it's WWF, WWE, WCW, ECW. We even cover the golden eras of Ring of Honor, Progress, TNA, and more promotions in the future as well. New episodes every Wednesday. Bump Day, yeah? Go to apronbump.com or go to your favorite podcast platform or YouTube and subscribe today for the most diverse, fan-friendly wrestling podcast in the world. I'm Hard.
All right. So go check them out at Apron _Bump. Great stuff. We'll be back on there the coming year. I think coming up we're going to do Unbreakable 05, I keep saying, and I'll wish it into an existence. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But we have about 13 minutes left. We'll go a little bit over if we have to, but because there's a lot of good questions we obviously have. We've enjoyed everything Michael brings to us every time he comes. We were doing it each month, or we're still trying to do it each month, but it's been a little bit. But there was a couple interviews you got that I think it would be silly if we didn't talk about them. In regards to TV, so one, have you heard anything about this new distribution deal that Asper had mentioned on his Twitter? I know a lot of people are still waiting for it, think it already was announced being something we've already had, or it's so that's the question number one. And the number two, 2015 is a big year, transitional year for Impact. I want to know a little more about that. I know you just interviewed Andy Barton, who was Dixie's right-hand man for a while, and then as he left, the CSO became Eric Sherman. So we'll talk a little about that. Maybe start wherever you want with it, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, sure. So to address the question about whatever deal Len Asper is talking about, no, I don't know anything. I haven't asked anyone internally because I just assumed they wouldn't tell me. I'm sure they know the answer. Especially the digital people who I've spoken with, but I don't want to put them in a position where they feel like they get in trouble. So I just will let it just I'll find out when everyone else finds out. But I'd say this: don't get too hyped up because us fans like to sometimes romanticize everything. So we don't want to get a little too excited and then be disappointed. So hopefully it's something good. But, I don't expect like a Peacock type deal. It's just something that gets the name out there more and, the distribution to be better. So we'll see where it goes. As for Andy, so Andy's an interesting story. So Andy, first off, worked with Dixie for almost 20 years. He worked with her at Trifecta Entertainment, which was her PR agency prior to Impact. So they worked together for a long time, working on music acts and things like that, doing PR marketing for them. And then, this opportunity came about for Dixie to buy into TNA, and she brought Andy with her. because they were originally working on TNA as like an account, and then all of a sudden it became that they were employed by TNA, right? So I remember having a phone call with Dixie earlier this year, and she was saying that, and I'm not trying to be negative, but she was saying something like, oh, one of the people who will really kind of give you the truth about the company's history is Andy Barton, and the only way you're going to be able to talk to him is through me. Something to that effect. And I was like, really? Well, someone who will remain nameless because they're kind of a surprise that will have to be held until right before the release of the book, is tight with Andy and said, nah, I think I can make that happen. And they did. And they said, oh, Andy's willing to talk to you. And I said, oh, really? Wow, okay. And we set it up and we talked, and him and I spoke for like 3 hours. And we went through everything. I mean, we went through everything from working at Trifecta to, the early days of TNA and the Asylum to Hogan and Bischoff to the Destination America email. Did it happen? Didn't it happen?
Can we talk about that? Are you?
Sure.
Okay.
So I could tell you this. It did happen. Okay. Both Andy and his replacement, Eric Sherman, who I interviewed the next day, told me that the email happened. So Andy was there right before. He left in like June. The email happened in like May. And he was on it. He was on the email. And I said, really? And I said, well, what was in the email? And he's like, basically what was reported. And I was like, okay. And so there's an interesting story there that I'm going to obviously share in the book about, what went down. And then Eric told me, Eric Sherman, that Dixie showed him the email. I was like, what? She showed it to you? Like, that's so bizarre. And so we talked about that, and we talked about Destination America and their relationship with them, and why did they cut it, why did they cancel TNA? Like, what happened?
Yeah.
So Andy was really interesting because he was there from the beginning all the way up until 2015 with Destination America. So there's a lot
Anthem,
there. Yeah. And then Eric was there pretty much during the worst years possible. He was there as their chief, strategy officer, I believe is his title. And he was there in June 2015 up until the time Anthem purchased them. And so talking to him, about Billy Corgan and, Arlex Marketing and, just all of these crazy times that the company faced was really interesting. And also getting his take on, just certain executives and things like that. And I do have to point out that when I interviewed these people and others, there are many times they go off the record because they want to give me financial information and things like that they do not want attributed to them. So I do know from these conversations and others, exactly what Spike paid TNA, Ooh. How much they paid to be on Fox, what was the deal like with Pop, what did Destination America pay them? Because that's really interesting because Spike was their main revenue
right.
stream. So then I'm sure a lot of people wonder, well, okay, when they went to Destination America, like how much money did they lose in the process? Well, you'll find out.
Okay.
So, it's really interesting stuff to not only get the insights, but to have like the finances to go along with it to really help paint the picture of the, what the company went through.
Now,
all the ups and downs.
Yeah,
it's really, both of these guys have never done an interview with anyone before, so this is really, really special.
Yeah, that's crazy. I obviously did my due diligence and looked into them and kind of what their time frame was, and you obviously explained it beautifully there. But for a reference point for everyone listening, so obviously he said Andy Barton was with Dixie from prior to TNA, all the way up until 2015. 2015, Eric Sherman came in as the CSO, and Andy Barton left. In 2015, that was going from Spike, right? From leaving Spike to going to Destination America, or Destination America to Pop?
Well, actually, so two things. One is they ended with Spike at the end of 2014, right. Debuted on Destination America, I believe, is the beginning of 2015. And then by the end of 2015, they were canceled on Destination America, so that deal got cut short.
And also ROH was on there. Was
right,
that just
it was on there
was
too.
that I mean, you don't need to go into everything, but we could spill the TNA a little bit. Was that a big FU to Dixie, essentially?
I talked to Eric about that. He didn't seem to think it was that. He didn't seem to think that was the case. But and we talked about the people who he dealt with directly at the network. For example, I just recently transcribed my interview with Kevin Kay, the president of Spike, who was terrific, and at Destination America, it was this guy Mark, who was the general manager, basically, who ran the network. It's interesting just to kind of see how that all played out, because within the span of just like a year almost, they went from Spike to Destination America to Pop. Like, it was just hopping from network to network.
He took Schitt's Creek right to Pop. He went down.
Yeah.
So I only got a few minutes left, but there are some. I want to know if there's anything. I won't ask specifically who said it, but is there something that just when you heard it between all of these interviews that we'll say that you've had since the last time we spoke, so we won't pinpoint an individual. Is there something just that made you just shake your head, that was like, what the hell are you, like, why did that, like Dixie, obviously the email, and obviously she showed it around, but obviously we know that she was having someone watch the Hogan video and then watching it herself a little bit. We found out that last time. Is there anything funny that this time that you want to drop here on the show?
I don't know about funny. So since we last spoke, I interviewed Dixie's dad, Bob Carter, who was the financial backer, right, for TNA for a period of time. He's basically the second Richard Scrushy, if you will. And Bob was super nice. He was great. I did ask to interview his wife. She declined. But, hey, I was just shocked that I had a chance to talk to him. He was just really a treat. I think the biggest shocker for me was talking to this particular individual who I can't quote because he does not want to be quoted in the book, about the international TV deals and just how much money they were making off of India, of all places, and how that, kept the lights on, frankly. So that's really interesting to me, because I think no one would even assume that. They would think, India is not really what you think of when you think of TNA or Impact. So it's really interesting to think about that. And I can share in the book who brought that deal together, because that's really interesting.
And is that that's Sony 6, or is that was that at the time, or was that before that?
Yes, yeah. So it was a deal that was struck for multiple years, and they renewed it. But of course, when they renewed it, I'm sure it was for less money, because at that point they weren't exactly on as popular as they once were.
Right. As far as sorry to go above you there and trying to get some more questions in before the time though. Are those deals obviously probably less lucrative as before? Maybe going up, who knows? But are those foreign deals? Are you familiar with that now? Are they still active? Is that still what's helping us here keep the doors open, or what is any information on that?
So I'm pretty sure that they still have the deal, but I can't say with 100% certainty. I can tell you that over time, years ago they would make millions, like tens of millions of dollars a year in licensing fees, and then as time went on, that was not the case. So
the well dried up a little bit.
It dried up a lot. They went from being able to rely on it to not being able to rely on it at all. And I did ask Eric. I said, during these years when the company was struggling, like, TNA was so great with licensing prior to this, with, T-shirts and DVDs and all this other merchandise. Like, did you guys consider doing all that again? Like, just really, like, kind of blowing it up, and because that was a big revenue stream for the company,
Yeah.
and Don West was doing it. So did you consider that? So we talked about that. We talked about John Gaborik. We talked about we actually, well, not just with Eric, but with others too. I've spoken about, with others about Ed Nordholm.
Okay.
And Lena Asper, and
their opinions on them.
I'll tell you this: a lot of people don't like Ed. I'll tell you that.
Ooh.
People that they've dealt with prior, no longer in business with.
Oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I've heard some terrible things about him. Not necessarily specific things he did, but just that. I mean, some people just really dislike him. I've never interacted with him. I can't tell you anything. I usually treat people the way they treat me, but all I can say is that for whatever reason, there's a few people who just really don't care for him, and they're happy that it seems that Scott is really the one kind of steering the ship at this point, not Ed.
Wow. Well, you heard it here, folks. Ed's a piece of shit. No, the last interview you'll get. No, yeah, man. Always a pleasure having you on. I'm fortunately trying to wrap up here, but I think there's so much we could talk about. Is there one thing maybe we didn't hit that you wanna mention?
Well, I would just say that in the coming months, I'm just going to keep writing. I am going to, there are going to be more interviews here and there. Nothing, I mean, not nearly as many as I've already done, because frankly, I have more than enough for the book. It's just anyone that can kind of fill gaps. I also have, lots of photography that's going to be included in the book, which would be fantastic. And yeah, there's more to reveal. I mean, like I said, in the months and years to come, because who knows how long this will take to finish, there's going to be more information to share. And there's also been some exciting opportunities that have come about because of this book for future projects.
Awesome.
So those could be things that I share with you guys in the future too. So, just stay tuned. And then if I can make it to an event next year, like Slammiversary or Bound for Glory, I would love to include in the book some sort of like diary, if you will, or journal,
cool.
kind of like a day-by-day, like documentation, essentially, of my experience and what that's like. So hopefully there's Slammiversary Bound for Glory next year. We'll have to see how things go, but I think that would be kind of a cool, way to kind of wrap up the book, if you will. So,
for sure.
Yeah,
it kind of put a full circle close on it. I mean, it's I won't say that I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but it feels like we're in the winner's circle, or we're moving that way. We're about to hit the finish line, and I think Impact's is finally hitting its groove again. But to see where we were, and then where we got to, and then where we are, it's just a long, exciting tale that I can't wait to read within your pages of your book. Oh, I couldn't get all that out. All right. Yeah, very excited about that. You can see his Twitter there. Obviously, his account at MCAVACINI. If they can't hear me, for audio listeners, you'll see him all over our page. We'll make sure we post it and tag him. And then also michaelcavacini.com, which is awesome. It's articles about this and music and all the other great stuff he does. So go check that out. Craig, I'll kick it to you for our final goodbye, and then we'll say adios.
Yep, so of course, here, there, and everywhere. Just want to give a huge shout out and love to Don West.
Oh, yeah.
It's awesome news. But apart from that, I guess we shall see you all next week for some more Nonsense Live.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, Michael. We'll see you next time, my friends.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.